Hi everyone, my name is Chef Alexis Bouillet and I am Chef Manuel Bouillet, and today we are going to present you our St-Rémy Cappuccino Tart. If you're ready, then let's get started. For the Cappuccino St-Rémy tart, we are gonna do, for the first step, the sugar dough. To start the sugar dough, we are gonna place our flour T55 into our mixer. Then on the side we'll have the softened butter. You can just cut it and then take it out maybe 15-20 minutes in advance and leave it at room temperature. It will have the perfect texture. Following, we are gonna add also sea salt. Then over here we have our powdered sugar. So we have sifted it in order to make sure that there is no lumps. Then we'll have also some almond flour. And it is now time to sand all those dry ingredients together. So as you can see now, we have a beautiful sandy texture. So this is really like a sand actually. And then we're gonna add now our whole eggs and then we'll finalize our dough. So then as soon as everything is well combined together, we'll just stop it. We don't want the dough to be too elastic. Okay, so our dough is now ready and we see that we have a beautiful and smooth texture. Then the goal is gonna be to spread between two parchment paper. The reason why is because sometimes at home or even in our lab, it can be quite hot. So the fact that we just spread between those two parchment, they will be easy then to place it in the refrigerator or in the freezer. And then we just have to cut whatever shape we want. So over here, I'm gonna start first with a kind of rectangular shape. We don't want to make it too wide because today we're gonna cut two tarts into it. So we start approximately like this. And then we place the other parchment on the top and start rolling it. Also regarding the thickness of the dough, we want something around 2.5 to 3 millimeters. We don't want something too thin because we want to keep the crunchiness of the dough and line easily the dough into the ring. After spreading the dough between two parchment paper, we can place it into the freezer until we use it. Okay, so now we can see we have a very nice thickness and we are ready to go. Our sugar dough is now ready and nice and cold. It is now time to cut it. We will use for this tart a 16 cm diameter ring. And we already spread some butter, just a thin layer of butter inside. Then on my side, I'm gonna start to cut approximately 2.5 centimeters bands, and that will go around our ring in order to create the side of the tart. So then now I'm gonna take a ring that's slightly smaller than our tarts over here and simply cut the bottom of it. And I will take this disc of dough and just press it gently in the middle. And we finish the process by just cutting the side of the tart, just having the same size everywhere. Our tarts are now ready. We can bake them at 155 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we have almost finalized our baking process for the tart shell. So it is now time to remove our ring. And as you can see, it's almost fully baked, let's say 90% at this stage of the process. We are just gonna take some eggs and brush the inside and the outside of our tart to get something very shining, and it will protect from the humidity our tart shell. So nicely the inside, also the edges of the tart. And we are gonna bake it again for a few more minutes, 3 to 5 minutes at the same temperature, 155. Our tarts are ready to put in the oven. So we are gonna do now our coffee sponge for the Cappuccino St-Rémy tart. To start our process, we have on one side all the dry ingredients that we'll be combining with in a mixing bowl, and on the other side we have a mixing bowl to combine our egg white and our sugar to make a light meringue. So first over here we'll start with the almond flour, the sea salt and the coffee powder. Then over here we're gonna have our mixture of yolks and egg whites. Following just after with our mix of coffee extract, cream and also tremolino. So the goal over here is to have a very smooth paste. You do not want to have any lumps remaining. Following we are add the flour T55 and also our baking powder, combining and sieve together. And we finish the base with our melted butter around 40 to 50 degrees. So then the idea is to have on one side like a nice and smooth coffee base, and we are adding into this mixture our beaten egg white. On the other side I'm going to start to beat my egg white and adding progressively the sugar. Our meringue is now finished. We can see we have a nice soft peak meringue, slightly shining and very smooth. So we can now combine the two preparations together. Because the egg white are the lightest part, I'm gonna pour over the coffee paste. So the goal over here with the spatula is you want to be the most gentle as possible. Why? Because in our egg whites we have a lot of air. Then you want to keep this air inside the sponge in order to have a very light texture in your sponge later on. So as soon as we see that the meringue has been completely incorporated, then we will just stop and pour the mixture into our ring. So here a very smooth and glossy texture. It is now time to pour our sponge into a 6-inch ring for the baking process. Then over here I have a simple spoon and I will spread the sponge into the ring to make it nice and even. Our sponge is now ready to go in the oven. We're gonna bake it at 170 degrees for about 15 minutes. After baking the sponge, it is now time to make our coffee syrup with St-Rémy. First of all, we're gonna place into our saucepan water and sugar. Then we just bring to boil and then we'll be able to add the rest of the ingredients. Over here on the side, we have some fresh espresso. So the fresh espresso, we can keep it just like cold and then we'll add into the syrup as soon as it will be boiling. Then it's gonna lower the temperature. And at the end we add our St-Rémy. Syrup is boiling now. We can add our coffee espresso. And then following by our St-Rémy. So now our sponge is ready to soak. So now we are gonna go at step 4 of our process for our St-Rémy tart. we are gonna do the coffee cappuccino creamer. So to do this cooking process, we'll place all our cream into our saucepan. Okay, so then following over here, we'll have over here our yolks, and then we can also place half of the sugar with the yolks and then half over here with the cream. And this cream will be flavored with coffee extract. So we can also place the coffee extract into the cream. So over here, our yolks and sugar are well combined. Then we'll wait until the cream and then with the coffee and sugar are boiling together, and then we'll temper this mixture and put everything back in the saucepan. Then later on, we'll have to cook it around 85 degrees Celsius in order to make our crème anglaise. Towards the end of the process, we will have some gelatin mass. Over here, this gelatin mass will actually help us to bring more texture in our cream and to make sure it's set properly. Okay, so our crème anglaise is now cooked. It's around 85 degrees Celsius. Then I'm gonna pour the gelatin mass over here in the bowl, and then we're gonna simply strain the crème anglaise over the gelatin. The final step over here, we will prepare a hand blender. So this hand blender will help us to have very smooth texture and very creamy. Okay, so it's time now to blend it, and then I will scrape slightly the side at the same time. So our coffee creamer is now ready. We are just gonna cool it down until 30 degrees, and then we'll pour over our tart shell, combining with the sponge and the coffee soaking. We are now ready for our assembly process for the tart shell. So we have here our tart shell, the coffee sponge, the coffee soaking, and our coffee creamer. So we're gonna start first to apply a thin layer of coffee cream in order to stick really well our sponge. If you do not do that, then when you will cut the tart, then the sponge will actually peel off the tart, so it's gonna be an issue. So just apply a tiny bit. Really don't need much, it's just to make sure that the sponge will glue pretty well. And I prepare my sponge upside down because the down part of the sponge is much more convenient for the down part of the sponge to soak it. Then I just press gently my sponge over the top and apply the coffee soaking. By using the St-Rémy, it will enhance the flavor of the coffee and make the tart even more refreshing. With the remaining cream over here, we will top on top of the sponge. Our base of the tart is now ready. We're just gonna let it set into the fridge at 3 degrees. So for the step number 5 for our coffee tart, we are going to realize our St-Rémy whipped ganache. So to do our infusion first, we will need the cream number 1 and also the coffee. As you can see, the coffee over here, we slightly grinded it in order to have something slightly thinner and also to release more aromas. So after boiling the cream, then we're going to pour the coffee, and then we'll cover and let it infuse for about 20 minutes. After 15 to 20 minutes infusion for our coffee, it is now time to strain it. You will see that the coffee will absorb a lot of humidity, so that's why we are scaling it in order to rescale the original weight of the cream, and then we can discard the coffee. Then you can squeeze a little bit the coffee just to get all the infusion. So then we add some extra cream to reach our original amount. After making the infusion, it is now time to add the remaining ingredients. First of all, we have the glucose. So over here we have a little bit of gelatin mass, and then we want to reheat everything together around like 65 to 70 degrees Celsius, just hot enough to melt our white chocolate. Over here we also have a little bit of coffee extract. For the coffee extract, either way you can put it at the beginning or even towards the end, that would be okay. The most important here we have our St-Rémy, and again we need to add the St-Rémy below 40 degrees Celsius to make sure that it will not evaporate and we will keep the flavor of it. After reaching 65 to 70 degrees, it is now time to create our base of ganache. So we have our white chocolate just right here, and we will pour everything on it. As you can see in this recipe, we have the hot infusion, so which is the hot cream, and then we have the cold cream over here. You have to understand that the more we are reheating a cream, the more we are affecting the quality of the cream. And then you will lose some flavors, and of course you will lose some volume. That's why over here we have the cold part of the cream. It will help also to chill faster our whipped ganache. First of all, we're gonna create a nice emulsion, and we'll finalize it with the hand blender, and at the same time we're gonna add our cold cream and St-Rémy brandy. After making the base of our emulsion, now we need to add the cold cream. So now our whipped ganache is done. As you can see right now, it's still slightly warm. So of course, if you try to whip it, it will never whip well. Why? Because it's not cold. So the goal is gonna be to refrigerate it long enough in order to have a temperature between approximately 1 to like 4 degrees Celsius, and then we will whip it later on. So you can refrigerate it or put it slightly in the freezer if you want to go slightly faster. But the most important is to keep it nice and. So we are gonna finalize our coffee chantilly. As you can see now, the chantilly is nice and cold after one night or at least 12 hours into the fridge. We're gonna whip it to make it light, and we will pour directly into our rings. Our chantilly is now correctly whipped. We can see we have a nice, soft and shining texture. It looks like a gelato texture. I'm going to scale the chantilly. I'm going to scale 200 grams per ring. And I will press it gently on the side to make sure I don't have any air bubbles. The goal for this tart over here is to kind of create as a wave. You know, it doesn't have to be overly precise. What we want is to have a very organic effect. So I'm gonna use the gun to create like a wave effect, and Manuel with a hot spoon will create some holes. So here we're using two sizes that will make even like a more organic effect. Our final effect is now ready, so we can put all together into the freezer. It is now time to decorate the top of our tart. I'm gonna use a spray gun and then just spray a very thin layer of milk cocoa butter. After this step, I will use a second mix, which is a neutral glaze, just to make it shining, and it will also protect the top of our chantilly. It is now time to finalize our St-Rémy coffee tart. We're just gonna do the final assembly process. So we just take the chantilly and we place on the top of the cream. Then for the decoration, we're gonna keep it quite simple. Over here, we have some remaining coffee cream, and then on the side, we have a little bit of chantilly. We'll combine those two together in order to do like the top of the cappuccino cup. Then on the big cavity over here, I'm just gonna use a toothpick in order to create a hurt. This is our version about the St-Rémy Cappuccino Tart. We wanted to make a very crunchy base with a nice and moist coffee sponge, a nice also coffee soaking enhanced with the St-Rémy. Also a very light coffee mousse on the top, and in the middle a very creamy coffee cappuccino creamer. This kind of tart is like, it's a very easy to understand as a flavor. You know, coffee and St-Rémy is such a classic. However, it will always taste good. Classic are always the best. Alright, so this is now time for tasting, always the best part. Nice crunchiness at the bottom. Wow. And you have the nice runny effect also. You can really see that the layers are really distinct. The thin layer at the dough at the bottom, then the nice thick sponge to bring some texture and some moisture in this tart. Then the creamy side of the coffee creamer, and then the very light side on the top. Okay. Cheers. Cheers. Really fresh. Cappuccino flavor is as if you drink a cup of cappuccino. Yeah. The contrast of texture, I think, is really important in such a tart, you know. The crispiness, the moisture, the creaminess, the light. And not sweet at all, right? No, it's not, absolutely not. We really hope that you enjoy our modern version of the cappuccino tart, and hopefully you will do it again. Thanks for watching.